You said no. No explanation, no excuse. Just no. And the silence that followed felt louder than any argument you've ever had. I'm Ferb, and this is Mind Sketch. Here's the promise. By the end of this video, you'll understand why explaining yourself feels necessary and what actually happens psychologically the moment you stop. We've been taught that a good explanation is a form of respect. You owe people your reasons, so you give them. Every time, even when nobody actually asked. That's the first clue something's off. Let's build this properly. An explanation isn't just information, it's a request. Every time you explain a decision, you're quietly asking for permission to have made it. Not out loud, but underneath the words, that's the transaction. Here's the mechanic. The brain treats social disapproval like physical danger. Same threat circuitry, different trigger. So when you sense someone might disagree with your choice, you don't just feel awkward, you feel unsafe. And explaining is how you try to make that feeling go away. The problem is, it rarely works, because the moment you explain, you've handed the other person a script to argue with. Every reason you give is a door you've opened for negotiation. Silence doesn't open that door. So why do we keep explaining anyway? Not because we're weak, because somewhere early on, explaining kept us safe. A child who explains avoids punishment. An employee who explains avoids blame. The habit isn't irrational, it's just outdated. You're still running defense for a threat that isn't there anymore. This is where it gets uncomfortable. Every unnecessary explanation you give trains the people around you to expect one. Not because they're demanding, because you taught them that your decisions come with a receipt. And once that's the norm, silence feels like a violation, even though it was never owed in the first place. Now the twist. Researchers who study assertiveness found something people rarely expect. The less you justify a decision, the more decisive you appear, even when your reasoning is identical to someone who over-explains. Confidence isn't read in the content of your words. It's read in how little defense they require. Explaining less doesn't just protect your time. It changes how competent you look while doing nothing else differently. Think about that. You could make the exact same decision for the exact same reasons and be perceived as weaker or stronger, purely based on whether you defended it. So what actually happens when you stop explaining yourself? At first, discomfort. Yours and theirs. People push. They ask why like they're entitled to it. And the silence in that gap feels unbearable because you've never let it exist before. But stay in it. Because on the other side of that discomfort is something most people never reach. Decisions that don't require an audience to feel valid. You didn't need the explanation to be right. You needed it to feel safe. Those are two very different things, and only one of them was ever actually yours to control. The problem wasn't explaining yourself. It was the way you needed permission to stop. You're welcome. I'm Ferb. See you next day.